learning multiple positions in which you graduate from each position and you conquer the movement deficiencies that you find at those positions before moving on to the next. That's what this video is about. I think a lot of people get frustrated with back pain and they don't know where to start and they just say, I need to stretch. This is a video to help break down your movements. And all you need is a foam roller. If you don't have that, that's okay. We're going to use something else, a mat or a place to lie down, and a wall. So if you have those three things, stay tuned because we're going to go through the movements. So first, make sure you get seen by a healthcare professional first. Make sure to have that in there. Next, what I'm going to have you do, we're going to use the wall, okay? So I'm going to lay against the wall. I'm going to have a little bit of pressure, and I'm going to work on separating my rib cage. Okay, I have just a little bit of pressure, probably 5 to 10 pounds. Pushing, you see that little push? Pushing, there's no movement from my feet happening yet. Pushing myself away from the wall. From here, I'm going to let my ribs flare up and then flare down. Up, down. Up, down. Okay? So this concept here, we're going to do this 10 times, is teaching you. You can see the shake. I have a little pressure against the wall again. Okay? Make sure to re-engage. All right, so again, just the rib cage. I actually just did a rep there where I got the pelvis involved. It's sort of easy to do that. Now, we're going to segment and learn this, okay? So now I want you to just, no ribs, okay? You can even put your hands there. Lock down your ribs and just move your pelvis. Okay? So what you should feel here is, oh yeah, maybe a little bit in my abs, like you're flexing at the top, and then a little bit of a stretch when you do the opposite. Again, make sure to not move your rib cage. Keep your rib cage in neutral. So neutral means that normal resting, ideally, from looking at the side, your ribs are in good anatomical position. And again, I'm going to do 10 reps just from the pelvis. And I'm going to show you, once we're done with 10 reps, what it looks like when you combine both, okay? So what we're going to do here, again, very little feet. I don't want to use my feet here, okay? I'm not going to use my hands either, okay? But now we're going to do both, okay? So I'm going to rib cage to the ceiling, okay? And then pelvis and rib cage, one going this way, this going this way. So arch down, arch up. Sometimes that helps, okay? Some people say tucking your tail between your legs like a dog. So arching, and then flexing down. Arching, we're going to do 10 here. So this is the combination of both. So I'm really going step by step. Okay, we first did rib cage, then we did pelvis, and we put them together, almost like a drawbridge. That's sort of an important point there. So you're looking at the drawbridge, making sure the drawbridge knows how to absorb that force coming down, right? But also when it goes up, how to push that bridge up. Okay, I'm going to say one more. So I'll let you do this along with it, okay? And then you're getting that rib cage control. Now, I'm going to say this. We're going to add another element, okay, which is the wall. So I'm going to press into the wall, okay? Now, I'm going to work on 90-degree position, okay? So from here, I'm just going to try to deactivate my hip flexors and have this action. I'm technically doing hip flexion, but with a rib cage in neutral, I'm teaching my abs to ideally control, and I'm going to only do 5 each position now, okay? And you can obviously go further. If you want, you can go all the way out into more of like a dead bug position, depending upon your strength. I think that's 5, okay? So we use the wall there to initiate and to keep that rib cage down. We're going to do that again, but instead of the single leg, we're going to go double, okay? So we're going to be here, get that position again, own that position, make sure your starting position isn't here. Some people, when they have excess mobility at the hip, they're going to try to have this starting position, which is, it flattens their back, but it's not ownership of that position. They're going to have their starting position here. That's cheating. We want this starting position here, okay? So get it 90 degrees and drop both, okay? Sometimes people are like, oh, like a reverse crunch. Nope, this is not a reverse crunch. Notice where I'm stopping, right? So 90 degrees, 10 reps. For a lot of people, this will be hard. You can see me shaking. There's no shame in that. You're going to shake a little bit. 8, go to 10. Last one. Okay? So once again, this seems very remedial, but we're going step by step. So you notice we did rib cage, and then we did pelvis. Then we put them together. And then we said, all right, fine. You got both of those. Let's do a single leg heel drop. The single leg heel drop teaches the hip flexor to almost sit it out, even though it's doing hip flexion, but while keeping a neutral pelvis and neutral rib cage. That's super important. I want to emphasize that again. When you're doing that, you're technically doing hip flexion, but we're not giving away the farm and arching while we're doing hip flexion. That's super important. When you train the hip flexors to do hip flexion, you get them to ideally only do hip flexion and not be necessarily trunk flexors, right? And only bring you down from the pelvis, from the rib cage. Okay, next, let's go to the all fours position. This is the next level, okay? For some people, you might be able to do that and be pain-free. When they get to this level, you'll be surprised. Some people, when they segment, okay, they might get stuck here, and that's okay. All right, make sure my shirt's tucked in, look like a professional here. All right, so next, from all fours, okay, and all fours is simple, but maybe it's not. I'll get my angle better. So from here, okay, I'm gonna have my hands underneath my shoulders, my knees underneath my hips. All right, again, that's important. We talked about the position of the knee before. No, okay? So make sure you own these positions that we're talking about. Next, okay, I'm just gonna segment. This is not the cat-cow. Maybe this is just the cat, okay? I'm just gonna go from my upper back, okay, and get thoracic mobility, okay, with the rib cage as the main archer and trying to keep the pelvis out of it. You notice a couple reps to get involved. Try not to have that happen, okay? But we are segmenting, okay, that's better. It is sometimes better to have a visual feedback. If you have a mirror or a video like this, you can watch yourself and make sure you're not misbehaving. Now, so that's the rib cage. Let's go to the pelvis. So from here, okay, make sure your toes are tucked in. I don't know if you can see this. So make sure your toes are tucked in. That's really important. You don't want to be down here, okay? But from here, start with neutral, okay? And then you're going to go as high as you can, okay? You might cramp, and then arch as much as you can, okay? So tuck your tail between your legs. Should be engaging your deep abdominals here, and then arch as high as you can. Again, high as you can. And again, I'm getting, based off of the video, too much upper body. You can't drop your neck. Okay, the neck can be a trigger too. We've got to make sure that the pelvis moves independent of the rib cage and the rest of the thoracic spine. We're gonna put them together, don't worry. Okay, so I'm using, again, the video for feedback, arching as much as you can, all right, and then rounding. Okay, so again, just get that pelvic tilt to move. These are hard and probably a little underestimated in terms of their utilization. I'm gonna say again, 10 reps as a rough number. Now, we've done both. So that's, call it the cat or the cow, however you want, cat, camel, whatever. Now we're gonna do both of them together. So we did both of them independently. Now we're gonna do both of them together. We really wanna combine the breath too. Keep breathing. Incorporate both, hold the end range, and then both. You'll also see a lot of people move off of it, okay? It's not what you want to do. Make sure you're just moving as high as you can and then as low as you can. Okay, so really working on managing each position. Don't rush through this. I'm taking my time. This is roughly the tempo you want to do. So, cat, calmo, cat, cow, whatever you hear it called, ownership of this position. And ideally, you should feel like your range of motion gets better and better and better. Okay? So, really, really, really work to get ownership of every position. If you feel like you're still restricted, if you feel like it's more on your upper back or your lower back, take note of that. And maybe focus in on just one of those spots. Now, all right, so we're working on mobility, right? But I'm giving you stability so you can focus on it. If I had you do this on one leg, you'd be like, I could never do that. But we do that every day in different movement patterns. So super important there. If you've graduated and both of those are easy and you got this movement pattern, we're gonna go to the next level. This is where I talked about the foam roller. You can also use anything, including a wall, anything in front of you, okay? Including a chair, okay? You can use a partner, whatever you need, you can use and hold on to something out in front of you. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use a foam roller. I think it's just a gentle reminder. Again, I'm gonna dig my toes in. I'm gonna push my hips back. I'm just gonna, from this point, focus on pelvic tilts, okay? So I'm gonna have a little bit of pressure into the foam roller. This sometimes what I do is I as the practitioner, I'm gonna put my hands on the foam roller and try to pull up. And if I can pull up, then they're not getting that sensation of driving down and keeping the rib cage down. Sometimes their starting position will be like this. Avoid that, okay? So what we wanna do, push your hips back, keep neutral. I'm gonna use it again to the video. I'm gonna use the video to give me that feedback of where my position is, okay? Because these are important reminders for me. So I'm gonna arch and then round. Again, nothing's moving here but my pelvis. Again, I'm gonna do 10. You might be like, this is so boring, I can do that. A lot of people can't. And postnatal, a lot of people go back to activities and exercise without mastering this position. That becomes a problem. Okay, now let's say you got that. Guess what? See a foam roller? We're gonna do that same thing. I'm gonna put my hands over my hips. Okay, I'm just gonna go pelvic tilt. Okay, so I'm just getting the arch, okay, from my pelvic tilt. Now, in this instance, you might be like, that's where I feel it. Stop here. We're gonna go back and forth between this position with the foam roller and that stable environment, and then master that before we come back to here. And then you're gonna keep checking on getting back to this position, okay? So again, can you move your pelvis independently, right? See this? Can you move your pelvis independently of your rib cage? I know this may look like that's it, but if you follow step by step, you'd be like, that's interesting. Now, let's say you mastered that position. Now what? We're gonna go and follow our rule and get stability, okay? I'll stay on the same side. So now we're gonna do that same thing. I'm gonna work on my hip hinge, okay? I'm gonna keep a vertical shin, right? I'm gonna put a little bit of pressure down into the foam roller. Again, I'm using visual feedback to make sure, whether a mirror or a video, that my starting position is good, that I'm starting from neutral and I'm not starting from an arch position, okay? I got most of the weight on my heels. You can have it, I guess, on your whole foot. But the idea is that I have a stable environment from my foot to my knee, okay? And then I'm pushing my hips back. Some people call this like a wedge, like they have a wedge in their hand. Okay, there's a wedge right over here. Golfing wedge, pitching wedge. That's the reference I'm using. Now, I'm gonna push into this foam roller, okay? And I'm gonna work that pelvic tilt. Now, here's what's interesting. My knees are tempted to move. Don't let them move, okay? And what's happening, most likely, I'm doing it a little bit, is the position, you're gonna go like this, and you're gonna get lower and lower. The idea here, don't move, just the pelvis, okay? So, how do we fix back pain? Well, If you can't own these positions and you have back pain, wouldn't owning these positions help? Now, I'm going to go one more step and say, all right, you graduated. No more foam roller, hands on opposite shoulders. So you really lock down your T-spine, okay? And then let's look at that action. Same thing, okay? I have a wedge right here, okay? Like right here, and this is why this is so important for golfers specifically. But can I really get a pelvic tilt to happen from there without support? Took away my support. So I took away my sense of stability. Now I need to be able to do this. So now you might be like, I did all those. I got it. But I felt them. It felt good. I felt like my lower back is on. My core is engaged. But now what do I do with all this? Well, you're going to take note of every position, maybe the top 4 that you really, really felt, and do those as part of your warm-up. And I think this is the most empowering thing I can tell you. The position that you struggle with is probably the position you need to spend more time with. So that means other exercises, exercise selection, and movements out of that position, okay? The one where you feel the most stable is ideally where you're training right now. And then the one where you're technically you have questions / pain, you don't necessarily have ownership, well, that's probably the one you need somebody to help with. I hope this was helpful. Understanding the causes of low back pain is sometimes, because it's so retroactive, is sometimes difficult. But understanding what movement flaws may cause you, okay, to solve the movement dysfunction so that you can use muscles a little bit differently, and that might relieve the low back pain. I've had low back pain since age 22. I was told I could never squat again, never deadlift again for sure. And currently we're working around 330 pounds on a trap bar for 10 reps. I believe at the age of 42, I believe in empowering people to take ownership of their movements and their health. And if you need help, please reach out, let me know, send me a message, send me a comment. Happy to help. I'm Coach Kev Dineen. Chat more soon.